That's great. Well, welcome everybody. This is the Wagner Society of America's first season's first virtual Wagnerians. Um, I decided to do this because I think it's very important for us to get connected with superstars and legends who are particularly making a very important career path in the Wagnerian repertoire, such as today's legend is Eric Halfvarson. Hi, Eric.
Greetings to everybody.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. And to those who are not familiar, which I highly doubt, who are not familiar with Eric's big career, he just told me over 50 years of career is behind him, which is remarkable. We all know that nowadays, I see my students especially, and I'm trying to tell all of you that is very it's an intense career. Eric is going to talk about it in details, but 50 years, 50 plus years on stage with all success and greater and greater roles, going into the recording business as well, the filming business as well. I think that is really remarkable, and that is why we are together and that we are going to listen to his stories. Eric,
Yeah.
I would like to ask you to talk a little bit about how you decided to become an opera singer. When did you decide, and when did you realize that you had a voice?
Well, voice types vary in the length of time of the speed of the growth process. And generally, you'll read that the basso is the physical voice doesn't really physically mature until quite later than almost everybody else. And so it's hard to evaluate the voice and choose a career path that way. But I was exposed to music as a child. Both of my parents were professional choral conductors and singers and teachers, and we had decades and decades of Messiah performances every Christmas. I was starting to sing that by the time I was at the end of high school. Um, and I played the French horn for 15 years, starting in the fourth grade. So I was exposed to sort of the working life of musicians quite early on. Although I rebelled, I wanted to be a physicist and first entered the University of Illinois in the physics program. But within weeks, I changed over to the music department. I just had a problem with the use of slide rules. Some of you may not even remember that before there were electric calculators in your hand, they used slide rules, and I just never was very good with that. And I met guys then who really were supposed to be in the honors physics program, and they walked around with a sort of side holster, like an American Western movie, with their slide rule going all the way down to their knee, and they could whip it out and calculate very quickly. I just said no. It's not really my nature was to be connected with music, and I didn't know if I would be a professional yet. I thought I'd be in education, but by the time I worked with John Wustman starting in 1970, and he kind of invented me and the way of working. And my voice teacher was Mark Ellen, Elyn, who was a marvelous bass, came from Seattle, Washington. And I joined David Lloyd's Opera Theater at Illinois and also the Lake George Opera Festival. And so I did a number of roles starting in those early years, like Colline and Leporello and Zarastro and Don Basilio. And there often David would parallel a production started at Illinois and then also take it to Lake George in the Finger Lake region of New York State. And somebody got sick, and I was called to jump in and have a full artist contract before I had done apprenticeships. So I count my professional debut as in 1973, as Don Basilio in The Barber of Seville, which wasn't even in actually Lake George. They had taken it on tour to a little vaudeville theater in old Lake Placid before the Olympics changed the charming little beautiful lake town into what it became later, which is not so charming if you ask me. But so that was my professional debut in English, and so by the time my junior year came and my voice was filling out, people began to suggest that maybe there could be something serious to do besides get a teaching job in some college somewhere. Once, and I had left the education department. I decided they didn't know what they were talking about, because I come up from a long line of generations of teachers, and I have a certain sense of how teaching should be done, and a lot of the new theories made little sense to me. So I was aiming for a graduate degree anyway, which extended my time in Illinois, which was really great to stay with John Wusman and Mark Allen. And then wondered what to do. The Lake George thing connected me with a casting production for the touring company out of Houston, Texas. So I then went, after graduating in 1976, I went directly to the new Texas Opera Theater to sing Figaro on tour. And we did Figaros all over, everywhere, ending in Missoula, Montana. And that was quite a good education. Difficult, because I had illness along the way. The guys running the tour thought we should do it like Broadway show tours, where you did 6 or 7 performances a week, plus riding a bus. And big long opera parts like Figaro and Susanna cannot really be done by one person. Nobody explained that to me in those early years. But you develop a sense of survival instinct and the need to communicate to people in South Texas who had never been to an opera before. And sometimes we were in some sort of gymnasium with our set and orchestra on one end and the people seated sort of on the other. And you have to get the text out to the people in the back row somehow. So I developed a very strong sense of communicating the text to the audience, which came in quite handy when it came time to sing in the Lyric Opera of Chicago. I managed to do a good contract right after in '79 with the Lyric Opera of Chicago to sing Celio in The Love for Three Oranges, my big house debut, and that was quite a big experience. They were overwhelming. Georges Prêtre was the conductor, and you only ever saw the top of his head. And it seemed that when my character came on, even more guys came in to play in the brass section. And a good buddy of mine came to the Sitzprobe and later said, quite frankly, it was nice the way you were moving your lips in time to the music. You know? But so right out of graduate school and out of the apprentice program that developed out of Houston, I've been on the road basically ever since, and moved to New York. I also had met my manager and agent who was working in Houston and in San Francisco, Martha Monroe. And she contacted several of us out of that touring company to form her own stable, and I was with her for 30 years. And she kept me quite busy and slowly developing. My career developed mostly in the United States. We figured I'd reach a certain level and then approach the Germanic world and try to get a house contract. And that worked pretty well, and I was Festvertrag in Köln. Wow. From 86 und 87 and that things had changed. Coincidentally, that was the same house where my old teacher from Illinois, Mark Allen, had been Fest for 12 or 15 years in the 60s. I took the same position in the same house that he had been in. But in his day, there were 90 people in the ensemble, always 4 or 5 basses in town. He didn't have to work quite so hard. When I went there were only 30 people permanently in the house, and I was the only seriosa bass in house. And so the expectation was then that they'd bring in guest stars for the premieres, and then the house singers would have to take on all the rest of it. So it was quite more than strenuous. Over Christmas of '86, I sang 6 performances in 3 days,
Mhm.
jumping from Sarastro to Raimondo in Lucia di Lammermoor. And I found, unfortunately, that I actually can't really sing 6 performances in 3 days. And I left them finally and was ready to quit for a while. I thought, man, this is just not for me. I had my 10-year burnout. As Martha used to say, everybody has a 10-year burnout, and then some people come back and some people don't. Fortunately, I came back and began singing better than ever. But so I had my ups and downs early in the career. My first Wagner experience, well, my teacher did have me learn Heinrich's aria from Lohengrin in graduate school, uh, which had a good solid high E flat. And so I sang it in church one time, a big resonant church in Champaign or Urbana, Illinois, and I had quite a good success. It became a big audition aria for me. And I also had learned Pogner's aria. I did quite many performances later of Pogner, and also Daland. So those were my university learning experiences of Wagner. But my very first performance of a Wagner part was, I think, in 1980 as Volz in Die Meistersinger von Nürnberg.
Hmm.
So he's the guy who says, Bin da! And I acted such an aged, slow motion character. I don't know if you ever saw the comedian Tim Conway on the Carol Burnett show. He used to do this incredibly old man who could just barely move at 5 centimeters per hour and had big laughs like that. I did the character like that. I got reviewed. Foltz got a review next to Tom Stewart. I thought that was kind of funny. And then I repeated Foltz in San Francisco and also covered the Pogner. So I had learned Pogner and got rehearsal on it as early as 1981. And that kind of got me started. So
That's
I,
amazing. I heard so many things, and I'm making notes because I just don't want to miss anything. So that's great that I heard that you were so much into Mozart and Rossini at the very, very beginning, and bel canto as well.
mhm.
I know that some of my students are here, so and also for the Wagner Society people, it can be very interesting. Why is it important that we are growing up on Mozart?
That's sort of a laughable old adage that, you're young and you should sing Mozart. Well, actually, Mozart is some of the most difficult and
Very difficult.
strenuous and kinds of music to sing, along with Bach and everything before. It's good exercise, but
Mhm.
actually, the long legato phrases of early Verdi were also a healthy alternative for me. It becomes clear even at age 19 or 20 that I may one day sing King Philip. And you don't expect to do it within the first 10 years, but you can start working on it when you should. And I thought I would have the kind of repertoire of Nikolai Gyaurov, and I wanted to sing Guardiano and Forza. I did sing Filippo eventually, and then turned into, as Tony Papana once said, for a long time, the Grand Inquisitor. And I did, I don't know, maybe 17 or 18 different productions of Don Carlo, many times with Ferruccio Furlanetto,
Yeah.
who is really properly his generation's Filippo. And every time we meet, it's like, man, how many has it been? I don't know, but all over the world we've sung that duet together. The greatest piece in all of opera, of course, if you
Mhm.
ask me. And I have the pleasure of winning, the argument at the end,
Ah,
which I sort of like. But I counted up 145 different characters in a total of 7 different languages in over 50 years in most of the major theaters of the world. So I sang, Oro in Semiramide, for example,
mhm.
lots of coloratura motion. There's a good recording on YouTube of that with Montserrat Caballé and Marilyn Horne. We had an excellent cast. So I moved around in wide areas of the repertoire. I've sung also modern pieces, Stravinsky and Prokofiev. In the last few years, I did a lot more Russian. My Russian is pretty acceptable, although I don't really have conversational Russian, but I study it very, very carefully. The General in Igrok, for example, a very challenging part. And in the last contract I had, in fact, was for Vojna i Mir, War and Peace in Geneva, which had been an old contract existing for a couple of years already. I was actually ready in early 2020 to go. I had my bags packed to go back to Vienna for that Götterdämmerung from Erich Sven Bechtold, one of the best productions I ever did because it was about the text. It was like Shakespearean play set to Wagner, and I was in good shape, ready to go. COVID came along, everybody closed. I didn't sing for 20 months, and then the last thing I had was Vojna i Mir in Geneva in Russian,
Mhm.
which I will say was a very regrettable production to me, and there are things which have occurred in the realm of production and promotion and the philosophy behind it, which I find crazy and unacceptable. If it has nothing to do with the original story, nothing to do with Tolstoy or Prokofiev, and it turns into a multimedia extravaganza with 5 different humongous screens showing slides and movies and the entire large cast on stage doing abstract contemporary dance movements, and I had to say, what am I doing here? You know. So I have been very resentful of the industry for apparently then just dropping me, as it were. But I guess people think, well, if he's 71 or 72, he's not going to be the first person we're going to call about doing a new production that's maybe 3 years out in the planning. So people just stopped calling. And so I've gotten into acting. So my sense of the energy of acting, whether on an opera stage or in front of a screen, a camera, it gives me the same sort of fascination, the kind of meditative awareness of passing by the proscenium into the stage and suddenly feeling that your life force is going 1,000 miles an hour faster than it was a second ago.
That's really,
One gets addicted to that, So
I
I'm
bet.
still in it.
Yeah, I saw some of your postings about your new series actually, and then it's quite impressive. You are projecting really well, and then I wouldn't expect otherwise because obviously you have got a wonderful bass sound, and then also a speaking voice is so fascinating.
Well, I hope so. I must say it's a little frustrating in some acting classes in small rooms where acting teachers have not much of an idea of what to do with me. And if I just start talking, it's like they think that I'm overdoing it. But I point back to people like Orson Welles or, you know, Richard Burton or people who acted with theatrical voice uh, and were able to be expressive. And so I'm speaking sort of normally now. That's just me.
Mhm.
And I do it in different languages and different accents. So I'm hoping to eventually. My fondest ambition for years, for decades, was
Mhm.
to finally become an alien on Star Trek. That's really what I actually wanted to do.
Okay.
And some of the Wagnerian giants that I've done have, in fact, looked very much like aliens from another planet. So I've had some enjoyment of that.
That's great. Let's connect the diction, how you are pronouncing and being very articulate about your speaking voice. Go back to the Wagnerian repertoire because that has got very particular requirements in diction.
Absolutely, that's one thing. The way I teach, the way John Woostman used to teach, uh, was to clarify the diction, particularly in German Lied, and you can learn a lot from listening to various recording artists, but then you have to realize sometimes it's maybe a lesson about how not to do it. For example, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau sang every German song ever written in the entire universe, but with a very Italianate legato connection, things elided together, making it sound like Italian, and it was very expressive in its way, but with a microphone less than 10 centimeters away from his mouth. But it's different on the operatic stage, and so Wagnerian diction. First of all, I, I have to impress upon everybody the notion that you have to visualize and connect in your imagination with somebody in the last row of the second balcony. And I'll use an analogy. A student, I'll say, think about it. Imagine that it's your grandmother, and she's a little hard of hearing, and she's way up in the second balcony, came in, but you know that she's there, and you know that she wants to get it. She's listening as hard as possible. And you standing on the stage have to picture that, picture the distance. And you have to want it in the marrow of your bones that she can get it. And if you meditate on that basic concept to begin with, you will do something extra to make it happen. And German has wonderful legato where it's possible and places where it must not be because it's part of the language and it's part of the poetry. You can't sing Du holde Kunst in wie viel grauen Stunden, as you might hear a recording artist with a microphone, and then listen to George London. It's like Du holde Kunst in wie viel grauen Stunden. That has to be part of it. You have to know where the long vowels are and where the short vowels are, and do it deliberately, do it authoritatively. It makes the language come alive on stage. And sometimes that will predict what a tempo should be. For example, Hagen's first line in Götterdämmerung is quite hard. Dich echt genannten acht ich zu danken. To denken. Acht ich. You can't go too fast. And somebody who's a pianist and looks at the accompaniment will tend to think, well, it's just like a polonaise. Ba-rum, bum, ba-bum, ba-bum, bum. And it will go too fast. It has to be done with a certain ponderous deliberation, which is the musical drama presented by Wagner to describe the arrogance of Gunther the king and the way that he asks his question. Tempi should come from a sense of the music drama. Like the Grand Inquisitor and King Philip, the tempo marking is actually the same as for Sparafucile and Rigoletto. But it cannot be the same tempo. Think of the orchestration, completely different effect. Think of the dramatic characterization of the Grand Inquisitor, 90 years old and blind, and walking with studied slowness, with bassoon and basso clarinet. It's quite different. Rigoletto, Signor va, no, no, niente. Yeah, but the Grand Inquisitor has to be boom, 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 boom. And so conductors have to note that basic concept about music drama, starting with the orchestra. And some young conductors who come right out of an academic class and are instructed by their teachers, you have to do what the marking says and try and do the Inquisitor. It's not ever going to work. Besides, if I have to get from point A to point B at the speed of my 90-year-old Grand Inquisitor, I'll never make it at that tempo. You have to think of this, of the stage, of the set, and how long you have to travel to reach a point. Whether Ferrucci's going to come and take my arm along the way, and I'm going because I'm trying to keep up with the tempo. It can ruin the scene. So there's a lot of little points of order like that come up along the way.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
I'm going on.
No, that's really good to hear it because it is really me being an educator as well. It's important to reassure that that's exactly the line. You know, whatever the books are talking about, that's great. We need to read them. We need to understand them. However, there are the tiny details between the lines, and that's what you were just mentioning. That's one
Yeah,
thing that the metronome says this, but then there is the heart and there is the drama, and that needs to be driven by the moment as well, you know.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
I would like to ask a
mhm.
little bit about your first big breakthrough as a Wagnerian, like something that you want to share with us.
um, well, I felt a big breakthrough when I sang Heinrich's aria in church when I was in graduate school. That was a big deal. Uh, the and the day that I jumped in and sang a little Pogner in San Francisco in a rehearsal. I was covering, uh, and my colleague David Ward was indisposed, and the conductor, a well-known German conductor whose name slips my mind at the moment, uh, was complimentary. And for me, being as Nikolai Gyarov once told me, oh, un bambino basso. I went back uh, uh, after Massenet, Don Quixote in
Mm.
Chicago and met Gyarov for the first time, and he was taking his makeup off and it was a mess, and I kind of shook his elbow and said, I'm a bass too, and he laughed and said, oh, un bambino basso. It takes a long time to get out of that stage, but I finally felt that time that Pogner might be in me, and it was a few more years yet until I finally sang one, but that was a big breakthrough for me. And I went through perilous times. I will say also a warning to everyone about uh, idolizing some recording artist. I wanted to be George London. Man. And when I was a little freshman, our, the head of the department at the University of Illinois vocal department had a bunch of us over for dinner, and she had big speakers in her living room and played the Flying Dutchman as loudly as possible. The kind of picture where it was making the hair, I used to have hair, it was making the hair sort of blow away from the top of my head, sitting in front of the speaker, listening to George London's Fliegende Holländer. I did learn a lot from him, but it was perilous for a time when I could hardly help myself but try to imitate in certain ways. And there was that Arabella in Houston early on, where we had Tom Stewart as Mandrika. And Tom was a wonderful, wise, kind of fatherly guy to me. And I really, rest in peace. He really was a good friend and counseled me carefully, because of course, I was doing the little baby part of Dominique, and one of the three little guys who the soprano says goodbye to and towards the beginning, and then goes off with Mandrika, if you know the story of Arabella. But I listened to that definitive recording with George London singing Mandrika with absolutely hysterical intensity. And I kind of can put myself a little bit into that connerval place and push like hell. I can sort of do him for a few dangerous moments, and that really got me into trouble. Tom Stewart kind of saved me from that and helped me stay where I was on the path, not to high bass baritone hysteria, but to stay as a basso cantabile and eventually graduate to be a Wagner bass. And I finally went from idolizing Nikolai Ghiarov and Cesare Siepi, and finally got to Gottlob Frick, whose voice I most kind of resemble in a natural way, and studied him for a while. So everybody has their favorites, and I'll tell my students, you have to swear, if you listen to one singer more than twice in a week, you have to swear that you'll listen to 5 other different singers from different periods of recorded history in the same week. And keep yourself spread out a lot with who you are exposing your ears and your sensibilities to. And then carefully, I've developed in my own teaching now ways of rediscovering your actual pure native voice. And the sulfiato technique of relaxation and being on the breath and feeling the vibrations out of the whole upper body, the throat open, the larynx allowed to rest down, and not squeezed through some little place between the eyebrows, trying to force yourself to hear your voices successfully placed in the mask, which I think is one of the worst bits of misunderstanding of the bel canto technique that could possibly be imagined. So, and now I find it ridiculous that there's this big, like, wide divide between those who sing in the mask and those who sing in the throat. And the people who sing in the mask will look at somebody like Giacomini or Franco Corelli and complain, oh, he doesn't seem to really have the right spinto in the voice. And I'm like, I heard Giacomini live as Cavaradossi in the grandiose lyric opera of Chicago, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. That was really how it should be done. And I've studied carefully the Milocchi teachings of Mario del Monaco. Listen to him sing Polleone's aria from Norma. You think Norma should be a lighter lyric, bel canto kind of music? And well, no. Listen to Polleone as sung by Del Monaco, and you'll learn something about pure voice projection, the actual function of the whole instrument, the architecture. Look at his jaw. Look at his mouth. How that jaw is slightly down and forwards. The teeth are in line. The vowel comes right across the lower teeth. Look at the mouth of Luciano Pavarotti when he's singing. Panis angelicos. It's not swallowed in the throat. It's not raised up into the high, raised soft palate as the other, what I call the baritone disease. Guys who listened and tried to imitate George London, whose mechanism was so vertically stretched between a high raised soft palate and a lower that the larynx actually tilted slightly to the side, and you get people who are singing a little out of the side of their mouth, and you can see pictures of London doing that with manic intensity, going ah, and you wonder why what happened to him happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
He had like 12 really great years and sang like an angel, and then started having trouble, and then had a stroke, like a stroke in the voice, as doctor, the Viennese doctor, I can't think of his name now, who did a whole program. There's a documentary about London in which he appears, describing a
Mm-hmm.
kind of a nervous collapse, a kind of paralysis in one side of the throat. He
Mm.
was this man who I wondered if he'd made a pact with the devil to be able to sing like that. Uh, and then the voice was gone.
Mm.
So it's a lesson one should pay close attention to, and it helped me very much. I met London once.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually good friends with my teacher, Mark Ellen, at the University of Illinois. And here I was, a little baby freshman, showing up to the door, and Mark opened the door and said, "Don't sing for him, he'll tear you to shreds. And here's George London." And George London started to stand up from his chair, and I was struck dumb with, and he's continued. It took him a long time. He's a big, tall guy. He stood up in slow motion. It took a long time. He finally reached his full height and took out his hand and reached towards me. And he could barely phonate. He could just say,
Mm.
I'm George London.
Oh.
And my face must have been like, I was just shocked, struck dumb. Um,
I
so
had
I
those
took that
moments.
lesson.
Oh gosh, I had those moments because I had also my idols, and then especially when my husband liked my idols as well, and then we had to listen to all those beautiful CDs, and we all both know how the CDs are made.
Yeah,
Uh, as you mentioned, 10 centimeters and not the whole entire thing
yeah.
is it's not it's a different sensation. Yeah, until I actually met the woman, my idol, live, and I was shocked.
And who was that?
I don't want to say that.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, very still active, so I'm not going
Yeah,
to tell the name.
yeah,
But
okay.
yeah, we do have these idols, definitely. So, going back, your T-shirt.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm wearing
tell us about it.
a Bayreuth T-shirt that I got in 2010. I jumped into I had done originally uh, Wagner's own, the older Wagner, uh, his own production, new production, when I was doing the Ring up there, and they were still putting it on. And I was there just to do the last year of that Ring cycle in 2010 as Hagen. I jumped in for a Fafner and also for a Pogner, and so of course this is a line. This is a line from Hans Sachs himself, which means basically madness, madness over all madness, which is about the way I feel about the world right now in these days. And I thought I'd put it on for this evening's recognition. I had some very good times in Bayreuth.
Yeah,
In that,
tell us about that. Yes, that's weird.
well, I went in '94 to the start of the Kirchner Ring, conducted by Levine, and
Ooh.
uh, that was I was doing Rosenkavalier in Santa Fe the previous summer, and they called and wanted me to audition, and I went to Chicago to sing for Jimmy, who was doing the outdoor park. I forget the name of the park out there. The Chicago Symphony outdoor parks concerts.
Grand Park.
Grant, no, the one
Yeah,
out in.
Millennium.
Hmm?
We have Millennium and Grand.
Yeah, Grant. Anyway,
Ravinia.
the one out west a little ways. I can't think of the name of it now. Anyway,
Ravinia.
Ravinia, yes, thank you. And Jimmy liked me right away, but he said, you still have to sing for Wagner. You have to go. So I had to finish a performance of Rosenkampf, jump on a plane. Uh, I went at that late night driving up to what's the city nearby, the capital of, I'm starting to lose my mind, uh, the capital up from Santa Fe an hour. So I spent the night there, then got up very early in the morning, got on a plane, flew to, I think, Dallas, and then flew to Frankfurt, and then took a little prop plane that would actually land in Bayreuth on the little airstrip that they made for the Führer to be able to land there. And where the landing was bouncing all around, I thought, oh my God. And I spent one sleepless night and got up and stood on the stage of Bayreuth to sing for old Wagner, Wolfgang, and sang pretty well. And he said, "Good, yeah, no, no, wunderbar, wunderbar." He just wanted to see that I was a living body who could make noise. And if Jimmy liked it, but that was a strenuous trip. I had to go then back to Santa Fe and sing another Rosenkavalier. It was quite a strenuous time. But that ring, uh, there are a couple of different kinds of directing styles. Some directors, they have it all written in the Bible, where you go to a Wiederaufnahme and they know where every hair is supposed to be placed, where every finger is supposed to be at every time. And there are other directors who will just say, well, why don't you start over here and start Act One, and just you kind of improvise it. That's kind of what we did for the Kirchner Ring. He had no overall concept. The designer just made some sort of sculptural things in space, an environment within which to work that looked kind of weird. But well, anyway, that was the '94 Ring cycle, and was all on a kind of a hill. To talk about raked stages, this was raked in every direction, and we had to wear high-heeled boots and wear giant packs with huge heads on as the giants. Guys like me who have to play the giants have generally developed knee problems, and that's why I have problems with my knees, I think. Holding it, you get to a position where you have to just stop and listen while somebody else gets to sing, and you're not supposed to distract attention from them, and so you are in a position on a rake stage with a ridiculous costume on, trying desperately not to move for maybe 10, 12, 15 minutes until you get to move again. There are odd things about opera productions, but we had a very successful time. Jimmy Levine made the orchestra able. This was an older orchestra. They could sustain the slow tempo that he wanted to do. In the second year of the Ring, half the orchestra retired, and a bunch of new people came in, and they didn't have the experience. They didn't really play the same way. They couldn't sustain this wall of legato sound that would just extend and extend. And the first act of Götterdämmerung in the first year was 2 hours and 11 minutes. It was like breaking records for how long it was. And people have stopwatches in Bayreuth. Every conductor has there's a graph and a flow chart somewhere. And the second act of Rheingold, people are obsessed with little details like that in the Wagnerian world over there. But all the conductors had to change all their tempi by the second year because the orchestra was completely new personnel, mostly young people who didn't know how to do that. They developed and they changed, but so Sinopoli and Barenboim and Levine were all kind of complaining around the canteen series, and then in '97 we only recorded the Götterdämmerung. And even Wagner had written a letter posted that because this ring was really not quite the kind of quality that they sometimes had, they weren't going to record the rest of it. So there is a Götterdämmerung out there someplace. And during that last part of that Pogner came up, and then I was singing Fafner and Hagen. Sounds like some sort of weird law firm from Nibelheim. Fafner and Hagen. And we had Hunding, Jimmy always wanted a different voice for that. But then adding Pogner to the new Meister, that meant I had like 21 performances in one Festspielzeit. And there were a couple of times I'd had to do Hagen, and then the next night Pogner. And I finally went to old Wolfgang and I said, it's really very strenuous. I don't feel I can do my very best Pogner if I sang Hagen the night before. Hagen, which is generally regarded as the most bombastic, dramatic, difficult, strenuous singing for a bass, and is not recommended to people unless you're really pretty sure that you really want to sing that. I sang it, singing it, not shouting it, and in the acoustics of Bayreuth that should be possible, so I didn't hurt myself. Coming to the open orchestra pit of the Metropolitan Opera was a completely different experience, and that kind of scared me a little bit there. But I sang it in many different cities. I think I sang 17 different productions of Götterdämmerung, so I was doing something right along the way.
Amazing.
I used to tell people, I love Hagen the most because at the end I get to kill both the tenor and the baritone.
That's funny. Eric, I just looked at my watch, and then you are such a great storyteller. We should have arranged like a good 4-hour talk. It's really good.
I wish we could do a longer one. It seems, but if people have questions, I'm happy to supply.
Yeah, let's just open the floor for questions. If you have questions, please just unmute yourself and then ask it.
Say hello, Andressa.
Hi, Andrea Silvestrelli is here.
Hi. I just want to say hello to the maestro.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, very good. You are, wow. I love you. And we worked together just one time. I covered the maestro in Chicago.
Yeah, that's it. That was it, yes.
Yeah, but I really, really love your heart, your everything, your voice. Amazing, incredible, really.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks. It's still going pretty well. I do intend to continue to sing, if only for myself. In fact, I'm working on the Hugo Wolf Michelangelo Lieder. I'm very interested in the text and in the beautiful writing, and I want to make a video. I'll just sing it for a few friends and make a video, basically, and post it on the internet, not to ask anybody to actually put on a recital concert someplace, but I have a few little projects like that, along with producing little self-tapes in my little studio here to audition for commercials or for movie parts or something like that.
I saw you in the new career, like actor.
Yeah.
Wow, you are really, really great.
Well, I'm trying to make something of it. It's been a slow go and a new learning curve, but I've made some headway. Yeah, thanks a lot. Great to see you again.
You're welcome. Thank you too.
Who else?
Is there any other questions?
You have to raise a hand and then unmute
Kevin.
your...
Hi. Yeah. I just wanted to say I saw you in 95 and 96 at Bayreuth.
Yeah.
I forget the costumes. I just remember Rosalia's costumes. I forget what you were wearing, but...
I lucked out, actually. The Hagen costume was comfortable and movable.
Yeah. Okay.
The giant costumes were not, and later I did one of the Hundings there, jumping in, and that was uncomfortable as well. But Yeah.
The others were Wolfgang, but I just wanted to say that the character of Hagen was the one that, and I think it was maybe before you, the Met did the series that was on public television, and I knew a lot of opera and I had a lot of favorite operas, but Wagner was way at the bottom. And someone convinced me to go to Seattle to see the Ring, so I started watching. And the turning point there was the scene, and I still think it's my favorite scene in the whole Ring, is the Schläfst du Hagen, mein Sohn.
Yeah, that's a
It's
very
so
special.
wonderful and
Yeah.
creepy. And ugh. I said, this is about more than just gods and monsters.
Absolutely. Wagner was tuned into something special from somewhere.
But thank you for all you've done for Wagner and the performances that I've gotten to hear in person a few. So
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Bill. Who else?
I think
Eric,
Yeah.
it's Linnea and Dawn.
Ah, yes. Linnea is my sister. Hi.
Hi, I don't want to take time away, but it's just a delight to see you do this, and we'll connect another time. Wanted to say
Okay.
hello.
I'm
Yeah,
glad you could tune in. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
you
We'll
bet.
talk.
Love you.
We'll talk soon.
All
Okay.
right, bye-bye for now.
Okay. I've got
Kevin?
family here too.
Kevin, would you like to? Yes.
Yes, thanks, Victoria. Hi,
Ah,
Eric.
yeah. Hi.
Much appreciation for I think your wholesome, I think just sharing of your life. You seem like a very happy person, and you seem very content with everything you've done. So my question I want to ask is, how have you maintained, I guess, that integrity over the years? Like you've seemed like you've known what to say yes and no to, and you've heeded your instincts and you've had lucky mentors along the way. So how have you maintained that
All of that.
integrity?
That's a large part of it. I've been connected with some very important people who taught me a lot, and I made some big mistakes along the way too. But and being the integrity of the commitment to the stage is something that became more difficult for me given certain production requirements. And I wanted to touch on this a little bit this evening, where if the story is completely changed, if the characters are changed, the relationships between them are changed, I'm willing to put on a space suit and sing a production set on the surface of the moon if the story is still the story, and if there is honest integrity to the score as the composer wrote it. Uh, but sometimes this is no longer the case, and I feel like the Lohengrin in Bayreuth that I did not was not true to the score, to the story, to Wagner's work. I began to be a little disenchanted with stuff like that. I've done some very honest and true kinds of things. Like I mentioned, the Viennese Götterdämmerung, where attention is paid to the text and to the relationship between the characters. A Tristan here in the Liceu was a high experience for me. Came along for me a bit later, and particularly Gurnemanz in Budapest in the Palace of Art was my first fully staged Gurnemanz, and I thought I'd really hit the top of the mountain. But I've had to do some of the most absurd and ridiculous things. The Achim Freyer Ring nearly made me quit the stage. That by the time we finished, for a guy who's a painter and decided to like stage opera, to say to us to begin with, he'd seen many opera performances, but never was convinced that the singers were able to be expressive on the stage. And he's the one who thinks that everybody should be turned into gigantic marionettes wearing masks and crazy things, and with very little movement or only one movement allowed, and that the masks going off with some philosophy of the no dramas of China or kabuki or whatever. Man, to have all of my hardest, heartfelt, honest work to portray a character from the depths of my soul and my heart on the great stage, even if it was like Chicago or New York Met or San Francisco, the biggest theaters I've ever seen, I believe I've been very successful. And I feel the energy coming back from the audience. It's a kind of symbiotic relationship between the energy of the performers on stage and the audience who are paying close attention. And to have Fryer just like debase that, and man, I refuse to wear the head covering mask. I said, quite frankly, not that I just don't really want to or can't imagine how to justify it, but I don't physically think I'm even capable to sing with my voice Hagen inside that mask. And I went through with the production and did what I was told. I was always like the good kid. If I'm in a contract and I've signed it and they ask me to do certain things, I will try my best to do them. But the Robert Wilson Lohengrin at the Met hurt me physically. The costumes, they declared proudly, we spent 300 hours making the tiny details on this immensely heavy costume. And I said, well, like, why? You know? And this shoulder has not been the same since that production. I remember going out after the Bows one time, and Jimmy Levine was behind me saying, you're not going to want to do this again, are you? I said, no, sir. I don't think I will. And there comes a point where I had too much of Regie Theater absurdity. There's an interesting interview with Orson Welles where he talks about the kinds of theatrical or performing arts personalities in various different times. And in the 1920s and 30s, early 40s, he said, it was the opera singers. They were really like the big stars, where, you know, Madame so-and-so would arrive from Europe on a gigantic ship, and the papers would go, and you'd see New York Times front page, so-and-so big opera star has arrived in New York City, and they were the big stars. And then later it was more the actors in theater and film, and then it's the directors. And so, well, in opera, it became the conductors, or the master, total rulers of the world, and now it's the stage directors, it seems. And the arts are allowed to be at the mercy of them. And I think some of what's going on in the most ridiculous of cases is like a crime against the art form. Like that War and Peace I unfortunately did as my last fully staged opera in Geneva. Man, I'm a little bitter about that, but I find my own ways of performing on the side anyway. And I teach and I conduct. I'd like to do some conducting. I've been known to jump in rehearsals and conduct. And I've since I was born and raised by a very excellent pair of conductors and watched them since I was a little baby. I have some instinct for it. There was a stage rehearsal, costume stage with piano only, of Götterdämmerung in the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden, and I was there to cover. I was singing Fafner and Hunding, but I was covering John Tomlinson as Hagen. And the assistant conductor, Tony, wasn't there, so he got food poisoning, sort of turned green and ran out of the room. There was nobody to conduct. I said, well, I can throw a few cues, a prompt, you know. So I conducted Acts 1 and 2 of Götterdämmerung quite well, I'm told. Tony saw me in the hall the next day and said, wow, John Tom just like sang you an anthem about how great your conducting was. I said, Tony, I don't have any delusions about that, but I do enjoy it. I wish I could do more. So my coaching, I believe my coaching and my teaching has some validity. Who else has a question? Larry, are you raising your hand? You have to turn your
Larry,
microphone on.
you have to turn your mic on.
I still can't hear you, Larry.
Bottom. Okay, Larry, bottom. Left bottom. There was an
He's on a
audio.
laptop.
There's a mic, and then it is
I
great.
got it.
There you are.
Thank you,
Hi.
Victoria.
Hi.
Hello, Eric. My name is Larry Lapidus.
How do you do?
I'm just curious. You sang so many roles, and that's just an amazing job. But what role do you feel you're most triumphant in, and would you like to sing it more, and where?
Well, that's hard to say. I've made quite a mark for myself as Hagen, as I say, but also as a Grand Inquisitor. I've done about as many Grand Inquisitors as I have Hagens. And also the Rosenkavalier, there were a few years I did Rosenkav about everywhere I went. Sang with almost all the extant Marzilins in the world. I never sang it in Vienna, but I did do it in München once, in that old production that was very similar to the one in Vienna. They were threatening to throw it out and build a new one, which they never did, I guess. But I loved Ochs aus Lechenau. I did all the Strauss roles that I could do with my voice. A little bit pissed off at Strauss for the way he wrote Barak in Die Frau ohne Schatten, some of which I ought to have sung. And when a higher lyric baritone sings in the first few scenes, where it needs to be low and ponderous a little bit with a chorus of brass under it, it's generally too light. But then in the last scene, it turns into a high screaming baritone part with high G's, which I'm not really prepared to do. So I don't know what Strauss was thinking of writing apparently a part for two separate voices, as it were. But but I like the parts I'm currently doing. I loved doing Prokofiev's The Gambler and acting that part. It was a very challenging, very difficult piece, but I feel something about the Russian music and would like to do more. If that answers your question. A bit long-winded.
But you're saying that you're enjoying acting on the stage more and more, which is a wonderful transition for you because you may become one of the greatest singing actors in town. So that's great.
I don't know.
We need more opera singers who act really well. We have
I agree with you there. And when I coach people, I do it as also a stage director, actor, where you have to follow the thoughts of the character.
Right.
If you're doing the Figaro's fourth act aria, and you have it's very easy if you really do the text clearly, and speak how his mind is. Think of having just heard Susanna sing that lovely aria, and he was hiding, and she knew he was there. She sang it for him. He comes out and goes, tutto è disposto, loro dovrebbe essere vicina. Io sento gente, ed essa... No, good. You have to be able to act the reality of the text. It's quite clear. And a lot of young singers are not directed in that way whatsoever. And they come to a coaching and they're just like doing sort of mechanical vocalizing over nonsense syllables of some unknown language. So I'm a little put out with some of the teaching that seems to be going on here and there.
Well, I want to just add one more thing. I've been pretty close to the Ryan people in the lyric for many, many years.
Yeah.
When I first started photographing some of the singers, I had noticed when they were on stage how they couldn't act. They had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, remember who ran the acting? She was a singer who taught acting. Diana. Anyone remember her last name?
Soviero.
Yes.
Diana. Yes.
And she started working with the singers to make them act better. And lo and behold, they became better actors. They just
And
need to
better
be taught.
singers as well, I should think, because
Yeah.
if you do text, your voice will get better.
Ah,
That works that way. Yeah, I sang with Diana a number of times. The Rake's Progress in Lake George and Turandot in Denver, Colorado. Diana was a magnificent singer and a lovely, lovely lady.
she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eric.
By the way, I want to just mention quickly, I did teach with the Vienna Summer Music Festival this past summer, and I hope to go back for next summer, run by Marco Polo and I forget his name, Vincent Connor. But look that up. It's a very intense program, but a good taste of Vienna, which is a city near and dear to my heart. So I hope to go back there. And I'm teaching privately here in Barcelona and also on Zoom. More on Zoom. I've gradually learned kind of slowly how to make Zoom work for me.
That's good to know because I have got some male voices, so I might recommend you to check you out as a teacher.
Absolutely.
I know you already worked with Marco. Those who came to the 50th anniversary of the Wagner Society of America last March, we had the countertenor Marco Rivera Rosa as one of our guests. And then he's in my studio, and then so he was working with Eric last summer in Vienna.
Yeah.
But before everybody goes away, there's one more question from Zachary.
Hi, can you hear me?
Where are you, Zachary?
Right
there you are. Yes, hi, Zachary. Are you a student there?
Yeah, thank you for being here today, Mr. Halfvarson. I just wanted to say, the two singers that I've always listened to in Wagnerian recordings have been George London and yourself. This is such an honor to meet you.
You could widen a little bit your perspective with a lot of other great Wagnerian singers.
Fair enough. I actually just wanted to ask you, Hagen is such a immense and monumental piece of the ring cycle. And I was thinking of Kirsten Flogstad's quote that you can spend a lifetime studying Wagner's music and never come to the end of it. I just wanted to know, like, throughout your career, how has Hagen changed for you in interpretation and coming back to the role over the years?
That's a very good question. Thank you very much. It's been a special opportunity in my luck to have 16 or 17 different productions doing the same character with different people, different conductors, different stage directors, different sets, and wildly different sets in different places. And I look at each time as a kind of new experience. And my work has to do as an actor with, in these cases, the Gibishung Halle Szene is about an interaction of people in an ensemble doing text like a Shakespearean play. And there's no end to how much you can work to improve your expression, to improve the way you make the words live in the acoustical environment, and to how your colleagues do it. And you have to learn to listen carefully to everything that is said on the stage. What's his name? Alan Rickman, the actor who played, what's his name in Hogwarts.
Snape.
Snape. He's Mr. Snape. Yeah, I heard an interview. He said basically you should never you should be saying anything that isn't prompted by something you've heard said to you by one of your colleagues. You have to focus and listen to what's going on in the environment and make the whole play work together as an ensemble. And how you say the next line should be a new discovery for you, depending on that particular instance of how your colleague said the line to you. It's always new. It's not like you get bored and forget something. If you're, I mean it, when you enter the stage, it's like your life force suddenly goes 1,000 miles an hour. If you enter it with that sense of awareness, of being here now. Look at that book, The Power of Now, by, somebody tell me the name of the writer. Now I can't think of the German name.
Eric.
I can't think of, but look, the idea of meditation has to do with centering your focus and your intention on being you now in this instant of time. And that's the only instant that exists. And I found that my experience of walking into the stage and being there in the environment, reacting to it, listening to your colleagues, watching the wind blow by or whatever's going on, you're meditating. You're in that instant of time. And if you're thinking about what you want on your pizza after the show, then you've lost it.
Awesome. Is there any more question? Because we are about to wrap it up.
I wish it were longer. It says it's 20 past the hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got nine minutes.
I know. If there is no particular question for now, that I am going to thank you so much, Eric, to join us. It was really a wholesome question and answer and storytelling session. You have got an amazing background as far as the singing and acting and being a wonderful human being.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm delighted to reconnect with the lovely Wagner Society, and I look forward to any opportunity to reconnect with any of you. I invite you to write me an email. I have a website that's just erichalverson.com that has an email opening there, and my performance history, a page of some reviews. The scheduling isn't going, there's not much to put in the schedule anymore, but I would be happy to. I'm trying to reach out. I've been a little bit in my cave a little too much in the last year or so, and I'm trying to branch out. In fact, I'm working very hard to reorganize and renovate my little studio in the apartment and look for another place to do some teaching. And there's Ronald Headland. Ron, I see Ronald. My God, how are you, my old friend? I want to just say hello. Ron, turn your mic on. So it's not muted. Yeah. Are you still at in Urbana, Illinois? Yes, he is. Okay. It's good to reconnect with old friends. And after 50 years on stage, I've got a lot of old friends,
That's lovely.
Keep going to opera, keep the spirit alive, and when there's something you don't like about some production, how could that be? Make your opinions known. Write letters. There's crazy stuff going on, like in Bayreuth, for example, or Berlin, there's some crazy stuff going on that I don't think is really good for the art of singing, or for the art of the stage presentation of operas. And the recording industry has a lot to do with that. I want a quick story. One time I did a talk for the Freude der Staatsoper Wien, and they played some little excerpts that I wasn't expecting, a long interview a live interview in front of a live audience. And they played the end of Act Two of Rosenkavalier from the Met. And where I stand out with my glass of wine in hand, and I say, "Mit mir," quite fortissimo. And then I step forward and make another one, "Mit mir." And then, very confidentially to the audience, my best effort at a pianissimo, I go, "Mit mir." And then I go, "Keine Nacht dir zu lang," and then drink a slurp of wine on the end of the note. Gets a big laugh. End of Act Two. So they played that. It had been through a radio broadcast, and there you hear the adjustment of the presence to the microphones that's adjusted automatically in their computer system. And so that the first one sounded like the microphone must be a couple of meters away. "Mit mir," and it was fortissimo. And the second time I tried to come down to a mezzo piano, and it was as though the microphone was suddenly within inches of my lips, and it went, "Mit mir." And then my best efforts at a pianissimo. The microphone now sounds like it's been inserted down my throat right next to my vocal cords, and I go, "Mit mir." And in the recording, they all sounded exactly the same. Mm. And so the recording industry, the broadcast industry, has literally eliminated the whole aspect of dynamic change and contrast from our music. And the Viennese Staatsoper Wien are some of the better educated and knowledgeable collectors of CDs and opera fans the world has ever known. And they were like, "Oh man, I had no idea. Keine Ahnung, das war." So what you hear in recordings is only a weak imitation of what really can be heard in a live acoustical theater. And even a lot of that is being done away with because they hide microphones around. Where my debut in the Metropolitan as Sarastro had the lovely Kathleen Battle kneel before me in the finale of Act One, and all the chorus had just been singing bam bam ba da ba ba. The welcoming was that's the loudest moment anybody's heard the whole evening. And Kathleen knelt down and said, "Herr," to begin her little speech to Sarastro, and everybody jumped because her microphone was turned up too loudly. And I thought, well, I'm going to just step over a little closer and sing right into this girl's wig where the microphone was. And so I went over and I said, "Stay." And just at that moment, you had the sense that in the air there was that hissing sound that went like, and I was, "Steh auf, erhalte." And it was just me all alone, and the amplification was turned off. So you can't believe what you hear from the stage of the Metropolitan Opera, necessarily, either. So listen to old recordings, people. Go back and listen to 1940s, 1930s, and even up into the 50s. My favorite recording of all time remains Parsifal from Bayreuth from 1951, where God himself came down from heaven to sing Amfortas through the body of George London on one of his best nights of his life. In, as I understand it, a recording technique where they put two microphones back in the Festspielhaus. So you hear the sound of a Festspielhaus with a Parsifal going on the stage, with clumping feet and coughing people in the chorus. And it's live acoustical Parsifal, recorded in a simple way, in an honest way. And George sang like a god. To me, that's the way things could be and should be. So pay attention to what you hear. Listen to different periods of time of the recording industry. Listen to people who had lyric voices but sang on the breath with their whole body behind it. Somebody like Beniamino Gigli or Richard Taube. They were lyric singers, but they sang their whole voice. It's not like they sang little, smaller lyric repertoire and made their voice small and lyric in order to sing the smaller lyric part. Their voices were what they were, and they sang that repertoire fully to fill a theater. Really, thank you all very, very much. I so appreciate meeting so many of you for the first time and some old friends. Let's be in touch, okay? Write to me. I will reply.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you for
Viktoria.
taking your time. And then I'm very happy that we reconnected.
Yeah, that's been important to me too. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Have a lovely rest of your afternoon. It's mid-evening in Barcelona. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much, Eric.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Bye, everybody.